Welcome back to my inner anchor, guys. Today is a bit of a milestone episode, as this episode is the first where I've ever shared this space with a guest. The person sitting with me isn't just someone whose work I admire, but someone who's walked beside me through every chapter of my own rediscovery. She's someone who's, been there through, I've spoken on the show about the last couple of years of going through CBT, my counselling, healing and rebuilding myself. She's been there through all of it. And before I even knew I needed that inner anchor, she's an intuitive artist whose work is deeply rooted in soul and well-being and healing, and we'll go into all of that. She's also my wife. It's Jo Graham. You might know her on the socials as Little Jo Art. But before we begin, let's take a breath. So, thanks for joining us, Jo. I say joining me, you're normally here anyway.
Yes, but thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast. It's very lovely to be able to have a chat and share things. So,
well, when I started off the podcast, as you know, we've had many of these conversations where it's been about, what I was going through at the time in CBT, what I'd been through in my past. You've gone through what you've been through in your life and your own journey of self-discovery, self-healing, all that kind of thing. So I couldn't think of anyone better to be my first guest than you.
That's very lovely.
Obviously, your artwork, we're going to go into the more spiritual side, but your artwork itself is deeply full of symbolism, both the astrology side of it that's started to come into it and the kind of spacey backgrounds and stuff like that, but particularly keys. And they've kind of, over time, they've developed into real symbolism, into the message behind the art, rather than just the beautiful aesthetic that I guess you first started doing. But I wanted to go to a bit deeper into kind of those earlier moments. What was the first key that really sort of evoked an emotion in you?
Well, that goes right back to when I was very little. When I was about, I guess around 5 years old, give or take. I can't remember exactly how old I was. But the first key that I remember being completely captivated by was a key that was a toy, and it came with my Clark's Magic Steps shoes. And my mum had taken me to a shop in town, and you used to go and get your feet fitted, and I went and picked my shoes, and I'd picked this pair of blue Clark's Magic Steps, and I remember there was an advert on the telly about that time, and the advert was this little girl who went to try these shoes on, and she found this magic key, got transported into this magical land with all these magical fairies, and she had to save them from the nasty queen or something. I can't remember exactly what the advert is, but it's still on YouTube. But this toy key that represented that came with these shoes, and not only was it a little toy that you got to play with, but it actually unlocked something in the sole of the shoe. You'd put the key into the shoe, and on the bottom of the shoe there was a little picture, and it would turn it, and it was like, I think mine was little blue stars or something, but I just thought it was so amazing and so magical that this key could do this, and these shoes had this, and that was me. I was totally enraptured with keys after that, and I used to march up and down the house playing with this key, carried it everywhere with me, and I just remember like going off into my own little world of imagination with it, and it just felt really magical. And I lived in a really quite characterful Victorian house back then as well, which was still quite original. It was being renovated by my dad, and it still had all the original features, and it was a time capsule, so even that kind of helped add to all that feeling of like other worlds and sort of magic and mystery and everything. And around that time, maybe within a couple of years or so, I went to the Moyses Hall Museum in town, which is like one of the oldest buildings in the town, and they had in there lots and lots of bits of history and relics on display from what they'd found in the local area, because we've got the famous Abbey ruins, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
They'd got the keys that they'd found in excavations from the Abbey displayed in the museum in these glass cabinets, and there were loads of them, and I sort of noticed them straight away, took a beeline for it, and I was just fascinated by all these gnarly old bent up keys, and thinking, wow, what did they open, who did they belong to, what was the story behind it all. And it's ever since then I've just found keys absolutely fascinating and mysterious, and yeah.
I know, like, going back to the sort of Clark's Magic Steps thing, obviously as kids, you know, I think there's a lot of us that got kind of fascinated by anything that was sort of deemed to be magical. I think that's, you know, will capture a child's imagination. Do you think there was more to it when you look back at it with that hindsight of sort of being retrospective, that there was more to it than just a kid being fascinated by something they thought had some sort of magic about it?
Definitely. I couldn't have thought that way at that age because
No.
I was a child, and you have that innocence and you take everything on face value, don't you? But looking back now, older, with a lot more experience, I definitely think that I'd recognised something that was quite significant to me in more ways than it just being a fascinating object. I think there was a lot more meaning to it that I wasn't aware of at that time. But as time has gone on and I've gone on the journey, that is becoming more apparent, I feel, yeah.
Did you think that, although you might have been doing it from the aspect of like a kid playing, but do you think that start of it, you say you were walking around with it all the time, for you, was it like it gave you access to a world that you might not have had without that kind of tool, even if it was coming from a child's aspect of play?
Oh yeah,
at that point,
because like when you're a child, I mean, you're playing all the time and you're playing with lots of different toys and things that sort of catch your attention, but none of the other ones gave me the feeling that the key did. So even though I wouldn't have been necessarily aware of it at the time, I definitely think I was tapping into something that kind of meant more to me than I would have known at that time. I recognised a significance and a magic about it that I wouldn't have been able to comprehend at that time.
I mean, here on the podcast, you know, one of the things we talk about is presence over perfection. Like, you know, it's better to be in the moment than worrying about a future one that hasn't happened yet and trying to make that perfect. And kids are great at that because they do just live in the moment. You know, how many times we've seen our nieces and nephews just turn on the head of a coin because something's distracted them. And that's what I think we as adults lose to a certain extent. Do you think that your creativity, and I know obviously you started creating, I mean, were you creating art at that point?
Oh, well, like all kids, I'd draw and scribble and play, and yeah, I had a toy guitar that I used to play with, and I was always a creative kid, so yeah.
Yeah. And you know, also you sort of touched upon, you know, nostalgia of the house you grew up in and all those. Do you think that those places, other than sheer nostalgia of, you know, being with your childhood and where you were happy and stuff, do you think that did you find them grounding places? Did you find them places of safety? You know, what was it about? I know obviously when you're going your YouTube walks, for example, you more than ever will go back to Reed and go on walks through Reed because that's obviously a grounding place for you. It's where you feel at home, obviously, because that was your home for so many years. But, you know, do you think that there's a groundingness within there, then that's how you kind of access that part of you, so you have to visit certain places?
Without a doubt, yeah, and it's particularly resonant for me because if I can bring astrology into it for just a second, my sun sign is Cancer, and Cancer is a very, very home body sign, and it loves home, it loves nostalgia and history and feeling rooted and grounded in its home. Particularly, I mean, you don't have to have a Cancer sun sign, you can have a prominent placement of Cancer for that to apply, and you know, a lot of people will have a placement like that probably in their chart somewhere. But yeah, for me, definitely that helps amplify that aspect of feeling grounded and rooted in home, probably for that reason, I think. Yeah.
And when it comes to the memories, because I think we've all got ways in which, you know, like sensory, how a memory will come back to some of us, feel of it, some of it's a sound, some of us will hear things. You know, with yourself, is it smells, is it textures, is it sounds, what is it that?
For me, it's feeling.
Yeah.
I feel into things, again, a very Cancerian trait. But yeah, it's the feeling it gives me. And I always put that into words. It's just like a really intuitive, deeply felt thing that you can only feel and not always necessarily describe, but it just gives you this feeling of familiarity and safeness, and yeah, I don't know really how else I can put that.
No, it's fine, it's fine. You know, but going back to the artwork as such, obviously, as long as we've known each other, you've been creating even in the tattoo studio when you were doing the designs of everything and doing your more, I guess, for want of a better term, the sort of more Geiger-esque stuff. I first knew you to be drawing and creating. But for anyone listening who want to know a bit more about your art journey, how did the keys and the symbolism and everything, how did that start returning?
Well, it was something that I had to go back and join the dots up of, because it was there and I didn't realise. But after sort of the being little and playing with the toy key that came with the shoes, I was always drawn to keys and always found them fascinating. But as you grow up and get older and you get interested in other things and other experiences and distractions come along, you forget things and you put them down, don't you? It's just quite a normal, natural process of life, I think. But it wasn't until we moved out to Reed, and I would have been about 10 years old when we moved out to there. It was a few years after living there that keys started to sort of come back into my realm of awareness. Now, there were keys in the house that we'd actually brought from the house, the Victorian house that we'd lived in, and my mum kept hold of them for some reason, and I have no idea why, but it was quite weird that she should do that. They went to old bureaus and jewellery boxes and things, and they'd just be sat on the windowsill in a little pot, and I'd always see them and notice them, but never really thought anything about it.
So they're always part of your subconscious.
So they were always just there, but when they really started to kind of come into my awareness again, and again I didn't quite clock it, but the pub in the village of Reed, which is where I sort of grew up from the age of 10, when I was old enough to start using the pub, which I used to enjoy doing quite often.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
One of the things I noticed was on the wall by the door there was a frame, and this frame had a flat lay arrangement of keys in it.
I remember that, yeah.
Now, I'd never seen anything like that before, and I thought that was so curious why anybody would take a bunch of old keys, put them in a frame and put them on the wall, and I thought, why would anyone do that? That's so bizarre and interesting. And then there was also I wonder what those keys were for. Who did they belong to? Why did someone want to display them and put them like that? And every time I went in the pub, I used to be so drawn to this frame of keys, and I didn't really realise why, but I'd always go over and look at it, or I'd look at it from across the room, while I sat at the bar. And I used to joke with the landlord quite often, I love that old frame of keys. If you ever want to get rid of that, I'll have it off you. So that's kind of where they started to first appear again, and that would have probably been around 2006. That's when I started using the pub, so I'd have been about 20, 21 then. And as the time went on, we sort of fast forward to 2015, I decided to leave my job at the tattoo studio and go self-employed doing portrait art.
Yeah.
And I was given a little studio room to use in the village hall just across the road from the pub, which was amazing. And I'd sit in there doing my portraits and what have you. And then in the evenings I'd go home and I'd continue to draw again. And it was in the evenings again when I was drawing all different bits and pieces of whatever was interesting me at the time. Every now and then a key would appear and I'd just draw a key or paint a key. And I don't have them all from that time because I had a habit of destroying old artwork that I didn't like.
Yes, you do. You definitely do.
But I've still got one or two of them. So from about 2015, that was probably when they started to appear in my artwork again, just every now and then. And I didn't realise why. I just liked keys and thought, that's just something interesting I can draw.
It's interesting that you say 2015 because it's something that's never occurred to me before. But obviously, we as a family, and I'm extending this because we're married now, but me, I always class your lot as my family. But we as a family on that side went through, I'm not going to go into it, we don't need to give people our energy who don't deserve it, but we've been through a time where it was tough and people were unnecessarily cruel to the 9th millionth degree, and that started to come to an end at around that point.
Yeah.
So do you think that, like anything, when you go through a trauma or an experience that's unkind and unnerves you and makes you doubt yourself to a certain degree, do you think that's possibly an element of why stuff started coming in, because you were re-evaluating who you were as a person, where you sat, what you wanted, where you sat in life?
Oh, definitely, because I think whenever we go through a really nasty, gnarly, horrible challenge in life, it's always horrible. It's usually unfair.
Yeah.
I mean, life's unfair. But my belief, and this is just my belief, so I don't want to sort of trigger anybody who's been through a really nasty experience, but it is my belief that from all the healing I've done, from what I've been through, that a lot of difficult and horrible experiences come to us, because actually we've got the inner strength to overcome them, because I don't think we're given any challenge that we can't overcome, and not only that, I always think that there's a lesson or a something to learn from those situations, and sometimes you have to be broken down to get back to the essence of who you truly are, because I think sometimes some of us do stray off track in our lifetime, because there's so much in the outside world and outside noise that's telling us to live a certain way, do a certain thing, tick list the old escalator of life. This is how you do life and this is the order you do it in, and that's not meant to be the case for some people. So perhaps challenges come along to kind of wake you up, make you look at things, realise how you actually feel about things, and then start to perhaps get yourself back on track. And that particularly nasty experience that we went through at that time certainly taught all of us, but me, a lot about who I am, what I'm capable of,
what we can overcome,
what I can endure, and so I definitely think there's something in that, and I think that probably shattered a lot of illusions and started to get me to look at things in a slightly clearer, even though I wouldn't have been aware of this necessarily at the time, but on a subconscious level, it started to shake off the trappings of what probably wasn't really aligned with me and get me back in touch with what was.
Well, no, but you never see these things, do you, when you're in the moment, because it's that present thing, you're consumed by what's in front of you. It's only from a point of retrospection and a point of sort of being far enough from the trees to see the forest kind of scenario that you pick up truly. Sorry to interrupt there, it kind of occurred to me that I never thought about that before, that kind of you doing that at a point where it kind of coincided.
I hadn't actually.
with that. So that was sort of 2015 that you touched upon then. And then obviously not long after that, we moved into this house and got our own place and our own space. And then, at that point, you were doing, keys had started to creep in. But at that point, you were still doing a lot of portrait work.
Yeah.
A lot of black and white pencil portrait commissions. That was kind of your bread and butter, for want of a better expression, with your artwork. And then, lockdown happens, and the keys, I guess that was the first time I was personally conscious of it really coming into play. There'd been elements of it, I think, when I look back, I guess there was possibly even some elements of it in the more Geiger-esque style Gothic-y artwork that you did. There was chains and those kind of things, and there probably was some sort of industrial elements of keys and lock holes, certainly, and eyes and that kind of thing that have come into play with some of your pieces now. But the 21 keys that you did in the lockdown was the first time I was certainly conscious of thinking, okay, well, there's something here. And I think that, the fact that you had done it in lockdown, and hence the title with a lock in it, that became quite symbolic of the time we were in. And obviously people were refocusing, reshifting, there was uncertainty in the world, and you were having, was it 21 keys that you did?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
And then in that point, you had the keys of happiness. But what set off that for you? Did you intentionally do 21? Is that quite a significant number generally in numerology or anything like that? Because I know you read upon that, I don't so much. I'm just wondering why you got to the point of doing 21 of them.
Yeah, I've never actually thought about the number of keys that appeared. But yeah, all the artwork I was doing prior to that was all very dark black and grey pencil work, wasn't it? And I think when I look back now, it was definitely reflective of the state of mind and my inner feelings about myself, because it was very gloomy, grey, dreary, chains and
quite gothic-y, quite Geiger-esque.
Really dark. So I think that definitely, when I look back, reflects how I was feeling inside and about myself and about what had happened in my life up until that point. But when the keys started to come back in, it was actually just before lockdown, just before we even knew COVID was a thing. I mean, this was a matter of days probably, or maybe even a couple of weeks. And I had this real insane urge that felt like it came out of nowhere. I just wanted to draw a load of keys, and I couldn't tell you why. I just really need to draw some keys. So I start playing about and sort of messing about drawing these keys, and then sort of within a few days or a couple of weeks or so, we hear of COVID, and all of a sudden we're in lockdown, and everything's turned on its arse, isn't it? And no one knows whether they're coming or going. It's a bit scary. No one knows if life's ever going to be the same again. Are we going to get through it all? You know, we don't know what it's going to look like on the other side, if there's another side, and you know how long that will take. And obviously, being furloughed from my part-time job at the time, like most of us were, I had time to sit and play with these keys that I so wanted to do, and started giving everything I was observing and what was going on around me and how people were responding to it. I just gave all that quite a lot of thought, you know, consciously and subconsciously, I suppose. And then I sort of realised that perhaps I wanted to mark what I was seeing with a little series of keys that had meaning to them, about what I was observing and how people were changing their lives, realising what was important, realising there's more to life than a 9-to-5 job. There's actually a life to live. There's stuff on your doorstep that you ignore every day because you don't have time to take it in, and you can go and explore it. You know, there's hobbies and things that they had time to start exploring. Oh, I've always wanted to do this. Well, I've got some time now, so
I think those things became very important for people. Yeah,
people's awareness and like realisations really changed, and obviously the realisation of, life's a bit precious here because people are dying. We don't know.
Everyone's world became very small, didn't it? Everyone, as you say, were caught up with the 9-to-5, you know, the social media thing, which makes everyone else's world feel so perfect and so airbrushed and photoshopped. We're delivered this sense of perfection all the time. But during like COVID, everyone's world went really small because, one, everybody was on the same playing field. You know, this was a global crisis in every sense of the word. Everybody was fighting the same battle, for want of a better term. But also because we were locked in, you couldn't travel, you couldn't go on holiday, you couldn't do all these things outside of your immediate zone. I think everyone's worlds became very small. It was very localised. But on that front, I think people did start to see what was in front of their eyes that they might have been.
Yeah, their physical worlds contracted, but I think their conscious awareness expanded when I look back, and I think that's quite an interesting way to look at it. So that made me quite interested at how people were reacting and responding, and how it almost, although we were locked in, it unlocked a lot of awareness and made people realise what really mattered and what was really important in life. And I guess the keys were just a symbolism of unlocking certain elements of your life. And why I came up with 21, I'm not quite sure, but when you reduce 21 down in numerology, it becomes 3, and 3 is, I think, a bit of a number of teaching. I might have that wrong because I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but I know that in numerology, my life path number is a 33-6, and 33 is about teaching. So I guess it was just kind of a, wow, this is teaching people a different way of looking at things. So I guess when you put it in that context, perhaps the number was a little bit significant in a way.
Even if it was subconscious, it was there.
Yeah, I mean, 21 is a multiple of 3, isn't it? You know, I can't remember how many times because my maths is quite abysmal. I wouldn't make a very
7.
Good numerologist.
7.
Well, 7, that's quite a spiritual number. So yeah, I guess if you look at it that way, the numbers probably are significant. But I didn't know this at the time. I was just acting on feeling and intuition and just following something that made no sense but just felt absolutely right to me.
I mean, throughout that series, you had things like, you know, like the key to happiness, key to love, key to unlocking oneself, key to self potential, unlocking your potential, all those kind of pieces. When you were deciding the names of certain keys, was it a stream of consciousness? Was it a grounding experience? Was it a way of finding what you were looking for, or was it elements of a personality or someone's makeup that you think we all need to focus on?
I think it's probably a bit of everything, because I wasn't consciously aware of exactly there was purpose in it, but I didn't sit and think, you know what, I'm going to draw this key, I'm going to call it this, and it's for this reason. I just felt like, well, that's clearly become something that somebody's thought about, it's something I've thought about, so I will call it, for example, I don't know, the key to prosperity, for example, and I'll have a little think about what I feel prosperity means to me and what I feel other people might feel it means to them. And I mean, it can mean anything to anybody. That's the beauty of all the symbolism. You interpret it in a way that it feels significant to you, but it was just me offering my observations, my take and my feeling over what I felt that symbolism meant, and then anybody who read it, what I wrote with it, can take what they got out of it, and think of it, in a way that feels right to them, and then that will hopefully then go on to unlock a little train of thought or a little bit of awareness for them. So there's no real right or wrong with it. It was just, this is what I feel, this is what I want to express, and then offer it, and then you take what you resonate with out of it.
I think a lot of people were looking for it in those times. You were certainly getting a lot of interest at that moment with it all. I mean, it was new and fresh to the public from your side of art, anyway, but also I think people were looking to, people were buying a lot of art at that point in general, because people couldn't go on their holidays, so they were redecorating the houses or doing up the garden, and suddenly that wall needs something, but people were, like you say, looking for something with a bit more depth and meaning to it, rather than just a 15 quid print out of whatever chain of shop or furniture store going. It wasn't just, I think people came a bit
were more in touch with meaning, weren't they? And they had disposable money because they couldn't spend money in ways that they would normally spend, and they were saving money by not having to travel, commute, and so they had that disposable money to spend on something that maybe had a little more meaning to them. Well,
they all kind of felt like a doorway to an element that I think all people were trying to find with themselves at that point. Even subconsciously with the stuff that you were doing, I remember some of the pieces, you were very definitively like, okay, this one is this, and then there were ones that were more subconscious, like I remember your key to love one, you had drawn your key, and I don't know the technical term for the end of the key, i.e. the bit that's not in the lock, if you were to put it in. That's how technical I am with keys, but subconsciously or not, or just because you fancy doing it as sort of on an aesthetic level, the end of it was in the shape of a kind of Celtic knot heart, and that became to the key of love. I don't think I don't remember you sitting down and thinking, I'm going to do a key to love at this point.
No, I mean, it just evolved as it was meant to evolve. Some of it I thought about, some of it I didn't think about too much. I just let whatever come through. Some of the symbolism that's in them I probably would look at now and think, oh God, yeah, that actually was significant, but at the time I wouldn't have made the connection. I think when things channel through you, you don't always have to be aware of what they are at the time. They can become apparent later on. So,
but I noticed as you became, we've spoken about this personally, and we don't have to go into anything you don't want to, but you went on a bit of a rediscovery journey. We both have been the last couple of years, hence me doing this podcast now. It was all about sharing mine, and that's why I'm inviting people to share their stories. But as you were becoming more confident in who you were as an artist and as a human being, and like before we said about your art being quite dark and quite gothic, as your confidence is kind of shining, as you've kind of dealt with certain things that might have been a chain holding you back, going back to kind of the first bit of artwork we were talking. More colour has come into your range of your works. The vibrancy of some of the pieces that you do now, like the one with the pink mandala that you've recently put up on your socials. You've got vibrancy of the pinks in those, and even in the kind of little mini series that you did where you had the kind of not work, but like kind of astrological patterns in the bottom left hand corner with the reds and the purples.
Oh, the sacred geometry.
Yeah, the sacred geometry
yeah.
kind of patterns and stuff like that. There's a vibrancy that has come into it. What made you start picking up more colours and more paints rather than the pencil?
Well, there's a few reasons for that when I look back. I mean, a lot of it was to do with how I felt about myself at the time. And when I was drawing portraits, I practiced morning, noon and night for years and became quite accomplished in it. And pencil was a natural medium that I felt very comfortable using, and I sort of just honed that over several years. But that would probably be my conscious reason for it. My unconscious reason for using pencil so much and dark and black and grey was, as I touched on earlier, probably about how I was feeling inside, and I was carrying a lot of trauma and wounding that I hadn't even begun to process and look at. Things and experiences that had affected me, which I hadn't acknowledged, because a lot of us, we just get on with it. We're too busy, we brush it under the carpet, we've got to get on. No one wants to hear it anyway, or say we feel. So it just gets stored and buried, and it lives in your body, and you don't realise it's having an effect on you. It sort of manifests subtly in certain ways, and for me it was art, and it was coming out in the artwork when I started to draw again. I didn't draw for years for myself before that, and that's another story about someone who traumatised me and crushed my confidence. But working at the tattoo studio, although I was drawing, I wasn't drawing for me.
No.
So I started drawing for me, went into the portraits, and then the keys started to come in. And I was drawing the keys in black and grey, quite dark pencil, because that's kind of where I was internally and sort of mentally, emotionally, I suppose. And it took probably about a year for colour to start coming through again. And I'd been processing a few of my demons and things that had hurt me. Alongside that, wanting to push my artwork out of my comfort zone and start exploring things a bit more, but hadn't really felt very confident to do so. But I did start splashing about with colour and playing a little bit, and and as time has gone on, and I've healed more and more and gotten more confident in myself and faced my insecurities, and it's never going to be done. I'm going to be doing that for the rest of my life. Life's a work in progress, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the more you acknowledge it and sit with it and heal with it, deal it with it, and just accept it, I suppose, things start to evolve and change. And I guess that's what was happening. So colour was then starting to come in, and I had to start to learn how to work with that, because I hadn't learned how to work with that.
So it's a different skill altogether. Isn't
it's taken the last sort of 4 or 5 years. I've had to learn to paint, and I've had to learn how to paint in my style and evolve it. So they were probably quite rough around the edges back then, and not quite as polished as the pencil would have been. But certainly as I started to find who I was again and get back in touch with who I felt I was and what my truth was, and that's when the colour started to come in. So it's I guess it was like the lights coming back on, if you like, and me starting to, because I thought I didn't like colour, and I thought I just didn't use it because I didn't know how to do it. But it wasn't really that at all. It was...
Do you think there was a part of your subconscious, and I know there's great black and grey artists out there, so there's no disrespect to anyone, but do you think that was a part of your conscious maybe keeping you small, like not allowing yourself to use the whole spectrum of colour palette? You were focused on no, I only do this bit.
Self-doubt and self-worth has always been a massive shadow in my life, and that horrible little demon that we all have in our head that bullies us was always telling me, oh well, you can't do colour, you've never done colour, when you do it just looks crap. You might as well just stick to what you're good at, and definitely you limit yourself all the time by letting your ego brain that wants to keep you safe in your comfort zone where you're never going to grow.
No.
Yeah, and if you listen to that, you'll just stay there. But there's always been this little part of me that wanted to push out of that, even though I felt scared and unsure. But I did gradually, very, very slowly start to do that. And it's taken a long time, but it started to evolve and improve, yeah.
What did you think, or what do you think, sorry, was the first part of you kind of gained back when you were like going on this rediscovery journey? And I don't just mean like personally, not, you know, was it confidence that came back first? Was it an understanding of who you were a bit better? You know, not just like painting with colours, and it gave you that tool set to explore.
It was for me a combination of curiosity, can I do it, and not wanting to be in the black and grey anymore, wanting to be in the colour. So that's, I suppose, an art way of putting it, but I guess you
wanted to be seen,
a conscious way of doing it. I didn't want to be stuck in that darkness and that dreariness and that sadness anymore. I wanted to feel colourful and wanted
have
to
that vibrancy.
Yeah, I wanted to. I don't know, really. I've never really thought about it, so it's hard to find the words to sort of put it. But yeah, I didn't want to be stuck in the dark and the shadow. I wanted to come into the light. If that's a very cheesy way to say that, but yeah, that's probably the best way I could express that.
And do you find that art is the way that you process not only your own emotions but the world in general?
Oh, definitely, because it's been by doing art that it's allowed me to be present and to shut out a lot of thoughts, although I'm thinking all the time when I'm creating, but it's not thinking in the normal sense of what am I going to have for tea, or I've got to get down and do that job and blah. It was just mulling over things, just naturally letting them come into my head as they wanted to, and then
sort of in a kind of more of a, not trying to put words into you, but more in a kind of meditative way.
Yeah, in a meditative state. Yeah,
your focus is in the physicality of what you're creating, but your mind is open.
Yeah,
to other things coming in on
it
board.
was shutting out the everyday stuff that doesn't matter and allowing all the stuff that was deep inside to come to the surface and say, this needs attention, this needs attention, you need to look at this again, you need to remember that experience and think about what happened, what it showed you and how it made you feel, and deal with that. And I spent loads of time in the portrait drawing days in my little Reed studio, and then sitting up in my little room now doing the keys, lots of things coming up that needed attention that I was just not looking at and not wanting to look at, and yeah, it just allowed that to come up. And it was quite an emotional process because you remembered things that upset you, and obviously when you're in them at the time it's just your normal, so you don't sit there and think, oh well, that's really hurt me and why. You just think, oh, that happened, oh okay, and then you sort of get on with it. It might have upset you a bit, but then you sort of get over it and get on with your life. But when you've had a bit of distance from that, you're looking at it from, you're not that person anymore. You're a person who's moved on and has evolved and is a little more enlightened and a little wiser. And you look at that situation from an outside perspective and go, oh, that was really quite wrong. That made you feel like that. That wasn't okay. You shouldn't have accepted that. You should have stuck up for yourself, and you didn't because you didn't feel like you could. And you look at it in it upsets you more because you sort of, mourn is not the right word, but you feel like gutted for the then you, and you want to go in and protect them and sort of fight their corner, but you can't do that. So it almost upsets you more going back and thinking about it, but that's really healthy, I think, because then you're allowing those emotions that you might have or could have felt at that time, you're allowing them up and you're allowing them to be released, so you don't have to carry the heaviness of it anymore. And it doesn't make it okay, it doesn't make it okay that thing happened, but you can then let it go and not have to carry it with you so heavily anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like when I was going through my counselling sessions, one of the things, as I thought for a long time that after my dad died, which is a huge trauma for me, I thought for a long time that, oh no, I can't be who that 22-year-old guy was anymore, and I can't. I can't, so too much happened to him. I can't be whatever path I was going to go down. That's got steered off course because of the trauma. But what I didn't need to do, which I did do, was I left that 22-year-old guy where he was, and I picked up another personality and tried to run with it. And then 15 years later, we're walking along a beach, or on a coastal path, I should say, around our beloved Cornwall, and I have a breakdown and realise what the hell have I done. But part of my counselling was going back to that 22-year-old, apologising to him and kind of taking him with me, and that's what I should have done all along.
He needed a hug.
He did.
And someone to tell him that he was going to be all right.
He did. He really did, because no one really did that.
No.
Not even me, if I'm honest, and that's something I've had to make peace with, and to bring that guy on my journey now. Did he grow up? Would he have grown up the same way he would have done had my dad not passed away? No, he wouldn't have. But he would have grown up if I'd taken him with him. I abandoned him, and going back to that and apologising, and anyone who's been through therapy might have done this, and anyone who's not been through counselling therapy might think I'm a bit of a loon from what I'm about to say, but I wrote him a letter. I wrote my 22-year-old self a letter.
But it's not, because I did the same when I did The Artist's Way. You acknowledge that part of you.
Yeah, and I think acknowledging, we all have things happen to us, and how can I put this? Sometimes, even though what happened to us and the trauma wasn't our fault, how we respond, those actions that we're responsible for. Now, you might not respond in the same way, going back to the kind of being far enough away from the trees to see the forest scenario as I do now, because I was in the thick of it, and all the rest of it. But you can acknowledge your part in it, and you can let go of the guilt and the blame that I personally carried, as guilt and blame has been a huge thing for me. And I think you find the ways to do it. Yours is obviously art, and so much of your art is emotional, it's intuitive. You pick up on stuff that I was going through long before I knew I was going through.
Well, that's the beauty of being Cancerian. We're incredibly intuitive, and we can see what other people can't.
But I guess my question to you is what does that intuition feel like? Is it, because to a certain degree I can. I mean, if I come home from work and I know you're in a bad way and you're not telling me you've had a rough time or whatever, I can pick up on that. But to you, is it an atmospheric thing? Is it like you feel like you're going through those emotions, what you're picking up on intuitively, or what is it for you?
It's just a feeling and a knowing. I can't really put it into words. You just sense it, and I don't know, it's weird. It's like when you walk into a room and whoever's in there has just had a massive bust up, but it's stopped and you've come in, but you can just sense the atmosphere. It's like an energy thing. You can just sense the energy of it, and I don't really know how else to put that. So it's just tapping into different energies that, and it's just being sensitive to that, and we've all got that ability in one form or another. And the more you tune into it, the more sensitive you become to it, and and then you sort of learn to discern it. But yeah, I can't really tell you exactly what it is in any kind of logical language. It's just, you just go with your feeling, and it's something you feel. I can't really say it any more than that at the moment. So
with you've in more recent months I've started going down this more intuitive artwork kind of level, and doing kind of the intuitive keys that you're doing for people individually about how they may be in that moment. You've done one for me and friends and family and stuff. How does that come to you when you're drawing the key? Is it like you just draw and then look back at it afterwards, or is it like a conscious, I'm going to, so my one, for example, like I'm going to use this spiral to showcase this part of Lee, and I'm going to use these colours for X and this colours for Y?
Oh God, how do I put this into words? It's really quite difficult. But if I was going to sit down and sketch a key for somebody that I'm when I'm tuning into them. Some things will just seem really obvious to me when I'm talking to them. So a symbol would feel appropriate to describe what I'm picking up on, so that I can explain it to that person. But some things just come through and I don't know why, and I just feel like doing it, and then I might know what that means for me to deliver to them straight away. Or I might have to, because I'll sketch it and then I'll go off and paint it and sit with it, and then things might come to me later. But it always comes as a feeling. And I mean, if anybody's ever had a reading or anything with a psychic medium, some psychic mediums will receive their information as clear thought or clear images in their head or clear hearing something, but obviously inside, not like we're talking now. And for me, I can only say it's clear feeling. It's a clear feeling which gives me a knowing. I mean, I don't know that it's going to be resonant to them, but if I feel it strongly enough, I've learned, or am learning, not to ignore that. It might not mean anything to me, but if I give that to them, it might mean something to them, and then they can take that and run with it. I don't know really how else I can put it. It's very difficult to sort of put into words.
Well, that's because it's so emotive.
It is. It is emotive. It's emotional. It's feeling. It's energy, which you feel. Yeah. In your body, you know, it's not something you do with your logical brain at all. It's,
equally along that front, you've gone through, I don't know if reading is the right term, but you've started to offer a kind of energy. We'll call it an energy reading, would you say? Yeah,
I'd describe it more as an energy reading than I would like going to see a psychic medium who would give you messages that they see or hear.
And equally, the all the kind of sacred geometry stuff that you've worked on and done your courses on over the last year or so, your astrology course and all that, and that's started to come into pieces as well. But equally, even in the boards that you're using for these sort of energy readings, when you're doing them, like, did you want to talk about those and how those are sort of come into play?
Well, yeah, I guess it's like anything. You follow a path. You don't know why it feels right. You just feel really strongly inside you, whether it makes sense or not, that it's something you've got to explore. And that's how it started for me. It just got me in the sense of, well, I just really feel like doing this, so I'll go with it. And it was listening to that. But in the process, very symbolic of these keys, and it's the symbolism that I want to convey to people in whatever I'm making. It's about unlocking. And it's about unlocking who you truly, authentically are underneath all that conditioning and all that doubt and all that fear that you've learned and picked up in your life or had put onto you by things, people, situations, experiences, outside influences all around us. We're taught to lose that childlike innocence of playing with no expectation, and that we sort of taught that we have to live up to certain expectations and do things a certain way so we fit into a box, so it makes it easier for other people and their fears are soothed for what they want so it's unlocking all of that and clearing that and making your peace with it so that you can follow your own path and get back to who you really are and what you authentically feel about what sort of person you are, what you want to say, what you want to do, how you want to express yourself, because that's what the world needs of you. That's why you came here, to be who you are, because you are you, not a version of yourself that will suit someone else or help you to fit in with somewhere that you think you should be. So that's what it's been about, and as I've gone along on my own path, it's started to unlock who I really am, who I forgot I was, and what I'd forgotten I loved and what I'd forgotten I wanted to do. So it's been a process of unlocking, and as I've trusted that and followed it, even though it's been really hard and I've cried lots, and it's been, I've gone through lots of hardships in certain ways that have made me think, what the heck am I doing? But it's unfolded, and it's led me to painting again, and it's led me to rediscovering and healing and taken me back into crystals and things which I used to play with and dabble with loads when I was
both
younger.
of us, as recording this podcast, are sitting here with our own.
Yeah.
You know, we're both sitting here with crystals. You've got your blue ones for communication there. You know, I've sat here with me malachite, rose quartz, my red tiger's eye, my selenite. You know, we're both sitting here with those.
Yeah, it's just opening me, unlocking me back up to what I'm truly resonant with, and the truth of who I am and how I want to live my life and what I want to do with it, because it's planted in you when you get here, you know, but we forget. So yeah, it's helped me to remember, I guess, what I feel my purpose is, which is to express myself creatively through art, and in the process be of service to people by helping to guide them through my own experiences and help them in any way that I can, in an empathetic and compassionate way as possible, because a lot of us just want to be seen and heard and understood. And I've certainly not felt very much like that in a lot of parts of my life in certain areas, and I just wanted someone to see me and hear me and, you know, acknowledge me. But really at the root of that all, what my biggest lesson has been, that actually I've got to learn how to do that for myself before I can do that for anybody else or get that from anybody else. And it's all about self-love, and that's part of the authenticity, learning to love yourself. So the key symbolism is very much about that, and it's helping me unlock and understand that about myself too along the way, and it's leading me to create and hopefully be of service through these things that I want to offer by painting and doing little energy readings to help people see what I see in them, and then they can take that, run with it, and hopefully start to unlock who they are. And I just want to remind people when it comes to all that, just not to beat yourself up about where you are now. If you're not, you know, if you've woken up from something and think, oh my God, you know, why have I got to this stage in my life and I haven't got my shit together? Well, you know, that's the thing, you've got to be kind to yourself. You have the awareness that you have now, and you don't have the awareness that you had.
No.
You know, that you've evolved, and so you can't beat yourself up for not knowing something then that you now know. It shows you've grown and evolved, and actually you've done really well because you now know that. So that's why you've got to give that younger version of you a hug and acknowledge them and go, well done me, I've now learnt this, that's a lesson ticked off, and now I can take that little bit of wisdom, apply it to my life, and hopefully I can do some good helping someone else with what I've learnt. And that's kind of what I want to try and help people with in the energy readings, you know, just help them learn to see that we've all got something to offer. We're not here by accident, we're all valuable, we're all worth something, and we're here to contribute something. Every single person on this earth is here to contribute something in some way that will be of help or benefit to nature, to animals, to other people, to the evolution, if you like, anything. So, and we're taught to forget that. We're taught to not like ourselves, and that we're lacking, and that we're not good enough, and that if we don't look like this, that we're not good enough. And, you know, it's just all that, and it really annoys me. So I want to help people shake all that bullshit off. I hope I can say bullshit.
You can on this podcast.
I could get quite potty-mouthed when I get passionate about things. But, you know, I just want to help people to see that, you know, they're worthy and they're amazing, they've got something to offer, and to get back to who they are, what they love, and run with that. You know, your passions are put into you for a reason. They're a seed that wants to grow, that you can use to benefit your life and that of other people's. Well,
this podcast, as you know, is called My Inner Anchor, and it was because I started referring to stuff in my own CBT and counselling and therapy and inner work last year of the inner anchor, which this whole, for want of a less poncier word, can't come to me right now, but a philosophy, I guess, a way of thinking. And the inner anchor is similar to what you were talking about, just that of it's that true part of yourself, that one that's really steady, that doesn't get distracted or compromised by external influences or noise or people telling you should be doing X, Y, or Z. You know, it's that true core authentic self, and that's the bit that we all need to hold on to. That's the bit that truly anchors ourselves when we're more aligned with that, or being as close to it as we possibly can, ideally being it wholeheartedly. But so who are you at your inner anchor?
I'm the person that's quiet and still and out in nature, on the beach, in the woods, and I'm quiet and I haven't got any distractions, anything infiltrating me. I'm just still, and I can then hear myself and I can hear what I'm feeling. And I say, I don't mean hear literally with my ears, I mean hear, feel, you know. I can connect with myself and to, whatever your beliefs are, something higher that's trying to help and guide me in the right direction. I can't do that if I've got, I'm going to use the word bullshit again, but bullshit distracting me, like just trash on social media, trash on the telly, that, just superficial stuff that just has no
there's no added value, is there?
No added value to it. And it's
no
not
purpose. It's not to cause fear.
Offering you anything,
It's not building you up in there. There's no nutrition to it.
No, if things are trying to put fear into you and scare you, then please just don't take any notice of them, because there's nothing true and real in this world that's out to get you and out to hurt you purposefully. If it is, then there's an agenda, in my personal opinion, But yeah, for me, the best place to do that is somewhere I love to be, somewhere that I feel at home. And for me, that's out in nature, walking, or on the beach, or sometimes just sitting really still and quiet. I can sit for hours with nothing, no noise, no nothing, just silence.
So those, what I would call your still points. So my still points is like how you act. So you got your inner anchor, which is the quiet soul part of yourself, and then my inner anchor is that steady part of myself. It's the one that's now wanting to do this to help people. It's the one that wants to, that's studying the counselling courses I'm now doing, that wants to do that side of things. That's who I am as a human being at my core. I'm the one who wants to help people. You want to help people with your artwork and the energy readings and stuff. And then so what I call still points are the ways I disconnect from the noise, the ways I get rid of all that kind of background, to use your term, bullshit. So for me, it's going to the gym, it's meditation, it's journaling, it's reading a book, it's getting out in nature as well. It's walking along our favourite beach in Cornwall. There's a reason I use photos from Cornwall in particular, because that's where I can access my inner anchor. I don't need to tell you, I told the listeners before, but you don't need to tell you were there. But, on that beach, we were walking along the coastal path back to it. I broke down, and we had sat on that bench and spoke for ages and said a lot of stuff I probably should have said 10-15 years prior. But it was also on that beach where, having done by the time we next came round, I had done all of my CBT therapy. I'd done a big portion of my one-to-one counselling at that point. There's just a lot of things on that beach that mean a lot to me. It's where I broke down. It's where I kind of came after I'd started rebuilding myself. I find it a really grounding place. It's a place where I feel at home. I can't say it for sure because I can't be in both mine and your minds, but I get the feeling it's where I feel how you feel when you're walking around the fields at Reed. It's that kind of levelling place for me, and that's why I use those photos in my social medias for this. It's not just about it looking aesthetically nice, as gorgeous as it is. It's what it means to me. They're showing where I get my inner anchor. Those are my still points of gym. Even cooking I find quite meditated in a way, but cooking, meditation, gym, reading, being out in nature, looking at trees, I've always found it really grounding. Other than art itself, where are your still points? How do you get rid of the noise?
Well, it's anything that I feel connected to, and connection is the key. Oh, see what I did there? Key word there. So it's anywhere where you feel a connection. Walking around the fields in Reed, it's where I grew up and it's my home, and that's where I feel nostalgic. But I've since found out that I have an ancestral connection to that place. So there's sometimes underlying things you're not aware of that give you that feeling of connection. So trust the connection you feel to anything, but the connection I feel when I'm walking around places I love, the connection I feel when I'm creating, and it doesn't have to be painting, it can be any form of creation. You know, creativity isn't art necessarily, it's writing, it's poetry, it's, you know, anything. So that connection, but also the connection I feel to music I resonate with. There is nothing I love more than putting my headphones on and just drifting off and escaping and getting out of my head, which again is quite a meditative thing, and music is so healing. You know, vibration and music vibration is really, really healing. So that is another still point for me where I can just drift off and meditate. And I just want to stress something about meditating, because I think people have been given the wrong impression about what meditating actually is. And it's not necessarily sitting cross-legged and making the om sound. Meditation is anything that helps you to clear your mind of like mind chatter and just allows you to be present. So it can just be sitting in silence, but it can just be just doing something like having a walk and just taking in the nature. It's just being present and just clearing your mind of worries, and thoughts will come in. You don't have to be completely silent headed, but thoughts will come in. Just let them come in and let them pass through. Sometimes there'll be things that you need to know, and sometimes there'll just be things that you just need to let pass through. But yeah, anything like that, the art, the creativity, the music, the nature, anything that I can connect to that resonates with me and makes me feel good inside, that is my still point.
Do you think now that you've found certain practices that help you get rid of the noise, and I'm only talking this because I feel like I'm better at doing this now through my self-discovery and stuff, but we all know how we feel on the opposite side of that when life is starting to get loud and we are starting to get a bit consumed. You and me, I get that nervous energy. I've spoken about this before on the podcast, because you know, about Sean and everything and his health. You know, the other day when I was all getting a bit much, I had to go for a walk, and I have to physically go get that energy out, and I know how it feels in my body, and I'm better at seeing those signs in myself now. Do you feel like you're better at doing that now than you were, say, 5-6 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still haven't got it all figured out. I'll still let myself keep going and burn myself out, because my ego brain's going, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to get this done, otherwise you're not good enough. You know, you're battling that all the time. But I'm definitely better at recognising that a lot quicker. Whether I take any notice of it and ignore it or not is another story, but again, with practice, and everything like this is a practice, you have to keep practicing it. So definitely I'm starting to know the signs a lot better and recognise them and know when I need to stop for a minute. And I think we all feel guilty for stopping and thinking that if we stop, that we're doing something wrong and bad, and that the world's going to fall apart. The world is not going to fall apart. Everything's going to keep turning and keep going. So be nice to yourself, give yourself a break and stop for a bit, because do you know what? And I've learned this the hard way, but sometimes actually stopping is the most productive thing you can do. Yeah. Because you're giving space for something to come in, for a solution to come in. Your mind stops being busy, you get the answer. And obviously you get to have a rest as well, which we do need to do. And when I say rest, I mean a proper rest.
Yeah, a natural rest.
A proper rest, not doing anything, sitting, you know, just being still and escaping into something that you feel connected to.
Okay, I'm going to turn the table slightly now. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this, but I'm going to. Because you're probably going to be the only ever guest that I have on this show that will be able to tell me this. Since I started my journey of self-discovery, going through my CBT, the counselling, all of that, what was that like for you to see me go through that?
It was hard, because I see things from a different perspective to you. And when I was trying to help you make sense of them and convey what I was seeing and picking up, sometimes you weren't always ready to see and hear that and understand it, which is there's nothing wrong with that. That's not bad. But my frustration was trying to help you along quicker when you probably weren't quite ready for that. And that's the thing, it's your journey and it's your experience, and you have to feel your feelings and go through it in your own time to get the lessons and the wisdom and the whatever it is that you need to learn about yourself through it. And I can't do that for you, because if I do that, I'm taking that away from you, which is actually not right, no matter how good my intentions are and how much I just want to help and take the pain away. Sitting and watching you have to go through what you have to go through, knowing it's for your highest good in the end, is hard. But you can do it. You're never given a challenge that you can't overcome. Doesn't mean it's easy and nice, but the harder it feels, often the greater the wisdom and the reward you get out of it in the long run. So yeah, it was definitely hard to watch, and still is sometimes.
How do you think I've changed from 2 years ago to now?
I think you're freeing yourself up and distracting yourself less. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, and I'm saying there's always room for improvement. Absolutely. For me. But I
never set this out podcast, as I said on the very first one. I never set it out because I'm now the finished article, because I don't believe that exists. I just got to a point where I feel I could start to talk about my story.
Yeah, it's being honest with yourself, and you're definitely getting better at that. That is so important, to be completely honest with yourself, because until you do that, I don't think you're going to find it very easy to, and this is not you personally, I'm generally speaking here, if you're not honest with yourself, it's going to take you longer to start to see things clearly. So yeah, I think you've definitely improved, and I think you're sort of really starting to get back in touch with who you are.
Yeah.
What you really want out of your life, what you really feel about everything. It's just coming back to yourself, and you're on that path now.
Obviously, we've been together 17 years.
This year, yeah. 17
years in, I'm going to say next month, because it's pretty much June as we record this. June starts tomorrow. So 17 years next year, 7 years married, 17 together. What do you think keeps us still anchored as a couple?
Communicating, I think, but also giving each other space to be and do who we are, because I think living in someone's pocket and blending into them completely isn't always healthy. I think you have to have honest communication and boundaries, and also have your own independence and individuality as well.
I think that's important. We do it more on a spiritual kind of level, for want of a better term now. You've got your beliefs, I've got mine, and you've got things that you'll go to, and I've got things that I go to. But we've always kind of had this, and I'm just saying this for anyone who's listening who might think otherwise, but like, for example, if we're at a festival, say, and take likes when we're rambling man, go, and there was someone on the main stage that I wanted to go see, which was the more kind of hard rock bluesy stage. They had their prog stage, which was more often not where you want it to be, of course, because that's what lights you up. We had no problem in going, okay, well, I'm going to go watch Monster Truck on the main stage, so you're going to go watch Focus. I think that was a real life example. And we didn't have this. We do need each other, but not in a kind of clinging to way. We've never felt like, oh well, I've certainly never felt, and I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think you have ever felt like, oh well, I'm going to have to miss so and so and watch X because Joe wants to see X. You wanted to go watch Focus, so I went, I'm going to go check out Monster. And for the example of Monster Truck, I said to you, I've never seen Monster Truck before, I'm going to go watch them for a little bit and then I'll go meet you over there. I was so enamoured by them that I just text you saying, right, I'm watching all of this, I'll come find you afterwards, where are you, sort of thing. We've never had that kind of need to be on each other's hips all the time. I know when I was going through my insecurities, I definitely had moments where I was more like that, and I felt like I had to be attached to you a little bit more, but that was a want for I didn't realise that my anchor was within me. I thought it was with other people at that point in life.
It's a security blanket.
Yeah, of course it is. But no, I think that now we're in a better place, and like you say, there's always room for improvement in our both as a couple and, you know, individually?
I mean, I've been that person in the past, thinking I have to cling on and go along and people please with other people. I've been that person, but I've realised how unhappy it made me. And if I don't be true to myself and do what I want to do, and, you know, not in a selfish way that's going to hurt anybody, but if I don't do what feels right for me, then it will make me miserable and it will make me a horrible person. So I've learned and started to practice, you know, over the years, to do what feels right for me. And if someone else doesn't like it, well, it isn't my fault, it's them. It's because it doesn't serve what they want or feel safe or better for. So yeah, I think it's healthier to be like that. Obviously, you need to have something in common,
of course,
but you also have to maintain your independence and individuality. A person isn't with you to complete you; they're there to complement and enhance, in my humble opinion.
No, I'm with you. Like, as we've said before, when we've spoken about things from stuff we're just, you know, trying to work out. Me and you do think pretty differently on several aspects of life, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it doesn't make either of us invalid in our thoughts and feelings. It's just that, as I've said to you before, like, you know, you're looking at one angle, I'm looking at another. We cover more viewpoints doing that, and I think as a collective, if you're covering more viewpoints, you've got more tools in your arsenal to either deal with a bad situation or just come to a conclusion on something that maybe isn't quite so dramatic, but, you know, you've got more standing in terms of a visual and an overall picture, I think, rather than people that might just be, well, we both think exactly the same. They haven't got that advantage viewpoint, you know.
Yeah, you just have to have some common ground that you align on as well.
So going back to you, because you are the guest.
Oh, yes, it's all about me. Yes.
What door are you unlocking next?
I don't really know, if I'm completely honest, and I don't think that's a bad thing to not know, because I think if we have too much fixed expectation of a certain outcome, we're limiting ourselves to what could be there for us that could potentially be even better than we could have imagined. So I would like to carry on down my path and see where it goes, and, you know, hopefully do some good with it somewhere, and, you know, bring something where I can leave people a little better than I found them. So I'll carry on painting, I'll carry on sharing my experiences, I'll carry on offering, you know, my guidance and little pearls of wisdom here and there, but I'll let it unfold and see what doors open for me, rather than thinking, well, this is what I have to do and this is what I have to do, because that's the only way that I'll get to where I want to be and be successful. I don't want to limit what's potentially there that's going to take me to something really cool.
So we are at the end of the podcast. If you can leave everyone listening with one sentence, one sort of authentic truth that anchors you or could anchor them, what would it be? What would you say to someone who might feel
I think what I'd like to say is that you're not here by accident. The very fact that you're here is amazing, because the odds of you being here in you are, well, without going into lots of science lessons and things, you know, but it's pretty amazing. So that none of us are any more special than the other, but it does still make us pretty special. So that in itself, I think, is enough to give you permission to love who you are and love yourself. Be kind to yourself and allow yourself to do what fills you up and what feels good for you, because that's where your magic is. What passions and seeds are in your heart are not there for any accidental reason. They're there because actually that's part of who you are and probably what you're here to bring. It doesn't have to be your job or your career. It can be something like a little vocation or something that you just do, but just listen to your heart, follow what feels right to you, and trust your intuition, and be authentic and let your true self shine and say what you think and feel, because by doing that you'll be much more happier, content and fulfilled, and it will definitely lead you to the right place. Don't shy away, dull yourself, dampen yourself down to fit in or to fit in with expectations. Just be you, because that's who you're here to be and that's who you're meant to be, and you're pretty awesome. So I just don't want people to forget that.
Perfect. Jo, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being you, really. Thank you for being...
I am brilliant, yeah.
I wouldn't have married you if you were a twat, so... but thank you for being with me. Thank you for joining me since, being on this journey, even before I knew I needed to do any of this, long before I even had the idea of doing the podcast, long before I started actually working on myself. You were always there, and there's no doubt you were the person who was there most of me throughout everything, no matter how much of a twat I was being while I was doing it, because I'm sure I had my moments, I don't doubt that. But thank you for being here. Thank you for being here doing the podcast and joining me on it. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks.
Well, thank you for letting me share and to let me offer my point of view. And if anybody wants to sort of follow a little bit more of what I'm doing or saying, my little pearls of wisdom and my little kooky videos that I share my weird sense of humour and my painting. I have an Instagram, I have a Facebook page, I have a YouTube channel and a website, and it's Little Jo Art, so please feel free to come and follow me and come along with me on my little journey as it unfolds, because I have no idea what I'm doing and where it's going, so be a nice few surprises for both of us.
All the links for Jo's socials and website will be in the description of this episode. So guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for Jo being my very first guest here on the My Inner Anchor podcast. Thank you to Jo for sharing her inner anchor story and how she accesses it through her still points. And next week we will be talking about daily rituals and how they can help fuel us. And enjoy your week, guys, and I'll see you all next week.